Thank you, Prime Minister. Thank you to Minister Taylor and, of course, my colleagues and Matt from Toyota. Australians want action on climate change, but they also want to be empowered to be part of the solution. And the potential of hydrogen as the carbon neutral fuel of the future is one which will empower Australians and households and businesses to be part of getting Australia to net zero by 2050. What we have is the opportunity to continue to lead the world in cutting our emissions while making sure that businesses remain competitive and part of that solution. Hydrogen plays a critical role because it can assist with reducing our emissions, where we have nearly 20% directly related to transportable energy and resulting from passenger vehicles and freight vehicles. And if we want to get to net zero by 2050, Australian households and businesses need to be part of that solution, and hydrogen fills that critical gap. It isn't the only technology, of course, exactly as Minister Taylor outlined. Battery vehicles and other types of technologies will evolve, fill that gap too. But the plan behind the future fuel strategy is very focused on what is the infrastructure we need as a nation to empower households and businesses to be part of that solution too, so that people can continue to drive between capital cities without facing the risks of outage or distance challenges, so that people can get on with their lives and be part of the solution for our country. Thank you.
Thanks, Tim. Happy to take some questions.
Prime Minister, in 2019 you attacked Labor's EV policy, saying it would be the end of the weekend. Looking back, was that silly, short-sighted or just a lie?
I don't think their policy was a good policy. I still don't think it was a good policy. Because Labor wants to tell everybody what to do. They love telling people what to do, what cars to drive. I think Australians have had enough of governments telling them what to do, frankly. We've just been through 2 years of governments having to tell people what to do. For Liberals, that does not come easily. It's not something we instinctively do. And it's not something I think Australians want to see more of in the future. See, I trust Australians. I didn't think we had to go and pay people to get vaccinated. That's what Anthony Albanese thought he had to do. I trust Australians that when they're presented with good options at good prices, they'll make good choices. I don't have to tell them to get rid of the car they've got now. That's what Labor wants to do. I'm not going to put up the price of their petrol on families and make them go and buy electric vehicles and walk away from the things that they have. That's just not the Liberal way and the Nationals' way. So, no, I don't regret opposing Bill Shorten's policy. I oppose lots of Bill Shorten's policies. I oppose his 45% emissions reduction by 2030 as well. And so did the Australian people, by the way. So, I don't have a problem with electric vehicles. I just have a problem with governments telling people what to do about what vehicles they should drive and where they can drive them, which is what Bill Shorten's plan was.
Well, actually, also in...
Yeah.
That obviously blows a huge hole in fuel excise revenue for the federal government.
Sure.
Is that a problem you're willing to solve, or are you planning to leave it to the states to implement their own distance-based carbon stuff and starting to do through this?
Well, I think as these new technologies come into place, and they'll happen over time. This is not, one day all petrol vehicles shut down and electric vehicles start up the next day. I mean, that's the sort of thing the Labor Party likes to talk about. I mean, this happens over time, and allowing consumers to lead this process, I think, is really important. Because you know what drives Toyota? The customer. The customer's always right, and the customer wants to buy electric vehicles at a cheaper price and get longer duration from those vehicles. And I'll tell you what, that's what Toyota will deliver. That's what other major vehicle companies will deliver. And they'll be driven by the customer. And as the government, we're not going to get in the way of that. We want the customers to be able to drive the incentive for these vehicle companies to drive their costs down. We don't want to drive those costs down by writing off big cheques to multinational companies. That's not the way you do this. You actually put the customer in the driving seat. And you say, you're going to drive this, and you're going to drive the companies to get their technology costs down. Now, our vehicle manufacturers around the world have been doing this for a very long time, and they're very good at it. And I have no doubt that they will meet the market and where the market needs to be at. But that will have implications for revenue bases down the track, and I'm sure with many things. That's why I say the challenge of addressing climate change is just not an environmental one. It's a very important environmental challenge. But it's no longer about the if, the when and the why. It's about the how. This is a practical challenge now. This is an economic challenge. And you need a strong economic plan based on the market principles which our economy is based on.